The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council chambers sparkled under the light of three suns. Inside, representatives from over 200 species gathered for their monthly assembly. Most were paying little attention to the current proceedings. Another routine first contact report from the outer spiral arms. Admiral Cathax, a towering insectoid with gleaming azure carapace, stood at the podium. His mandibles clicked in barely concealed amusement as he presented the holographic data about the newest spacefaring species, humans. As you can see, he gestured at the floating images of Earth ships. Their largest vessels barely reach 1 kilometer in length. Quiet laughter rippled through the chamber. They power their engines with primitive fusion technology, and their weapon systems rely on basic plasma technology. Councillor Vrix, whose species had achieved space travel over 10,000 years ago, leaned forward in her hover chair. Her silver eyes narrowed as she studied the images. Such tiny ships, she mused. How do they even manage interstellar travel? They've developed something they call slip space drives, Cathax explained. Crude, but functional. Though their ships can only carry enough fuel for 2 or 3 jumps before requiring refueling. More laughter echoed through the chamber. The Droxy representative, whose people were famous for their 20-kilometer dreadnoughts, actually had to stifle a snort. The humans' representative stood quietly at the side of the chamber. Sarah Chen, a middle-aged woman in a simple blue uniform, watched the proceedings with an expression of polite interest. If the mockery bothered her, she showed no sign of it. They request trading rights within council space, Cathax continued, his tone suggesting he found the very idea amusing. Their ships can apparently carry up to 10,000 metric tons of cargo. 10,000. The Droxy representative boomed. Our smallest freighters carry millions. This sparked another round of laughter. The council president, a being of pure energy contained within an environmental suit, raised a glowing tendril for silence. While these humans seem limited in their capabilities, our charter requires us to consider all applications for trading rights equally. We will now vote. The voting was quick and nearly unanimous. Most species saw no harm in allowing these primitive humans to try their hand at interstellar trade. Some even looked forward to the entertainment value of watching their tiny ships struggle with the harsh realities of space commerce. When the results were announced, Sarah Chen stepped forward and bowed slightly. The United Earth government thanks the Council for this opportunity, she said, her voice clear and steady. We look forward to proving ourselves worthy trading partners. As she left the chamber, few noticed the slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. None of them knew about the classified reports sitting on her tablet, the successful tests of the new shield harmonics, the revolutionary AI-driven navigation systems, or the quantum-linked swarm coordination protocols that would change space combat forever. Let them laugh, she thought. Humanity had always thrived on being underestimated. Back in the chamber, the council had already moved on to other matters, dismissing the humans from their minds. In the years to come, they would look back on this day and wonder how they could have been so blind. 6 months after gaining trading rights, human ships became a common sight in space lanes across the galaxy. While other species' massive freighters thundered through space like floating cities, human vessels darted between them with surprising grace. In his private workshop on Earth's orbital station Alpha, Dr. James Rodriguez watched holographic simulations of his latest shield modifications. The new harmonics allowed the shields to adapt to different types of weapons in milliseconds. His team had discovered that smaller shields could actually be more efficient. They required less power and could shift frequencies faster than the enormous shield generators used by other species. Dr. Rodriguez, his AI assistant, chirped, "The test results from the Perseus run are in." The data scrolling across his screen made him smile. The new shield design had performed perfectly during an encounter with a micro-meteor storm, while a Droxy freighter had to make an emergency stop for repairs after similar hits. The human ship barely noticed the impacts. Across the station in the Flight Control Center, Captain Mai Wang was implementing another human innovation. She coordinated with the AI systems of 30 different trading vessels, orchestrating their movements like a symphony conductor. The ships moved in perfect formation, taking advantage of each other's slip space wakes to conserve fuel. The alien observers stationed on Alpha watched with growing curiosity. They had expected human ships to struggle, but instead, the primitive vessels were completing trade runs in half the time of larger ships. Their small size allowed them to use shortcuts through asteroid fields that bigger ships couldn't navigate. "Fascinating," muttered Thortel, the Droxy observer, watching Captain Wong's fleet slip seamlessly through a tight passage between two asteroid clusters. "Perhaps we should reconsider our assessment of human capabilities." But not everyone was pleased with human success. In a dark corner of a space station bar near the outer rim, 3 figures huddled over drinks. They were pirates, members of the notorious Red Claw gang, and they saw the human ships as easy targets. "Their cargo holds might be small," growled Captain Vex, his scales glinting in the dim light, "but they're always full of premium goods. And with those tiny ships, they can't possibly have serious defenses." His companions nodded eagerly. Their massive warships had terrorized this sector for years. These human vessels would be easy prey. As they plotted their attack, they remained unaware that their target, the human trading fleet Swift Current, was about to give them a lesson they'd never forget. The small ships they dismissed as weak carried technologies that would change space warfare forever. Back on Earth, Dr. Rodriguez put the finishing touches on his latest project, a revolutionary point defense system designed specifically for smaller vessels. Soon, the galaxy would learn that sometimes the smallest packages contained the biggest surprises. The Red Claw pirates watched from their massive warship as the human convoy, Swift Current, entered the ambush zone. 6 small human vessels, each carrying valuable cargo from the inner worlds, moved in tight formation through the asteroid field. Captain Vex bared his fangs in anticipation. His ship alone was 5 times larger than the entire human fleet combined. Behind him, 2 more pirate vessels emerged from their hiding spots, their weapons charging. "Attention human vessels," Vex broadcast on an open channel. "Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we'll destroy you." The response wasn't what he expected. Instead of panic or pleading, a calm voice replied, "Red Claw vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of Swift Current. We decline your request. Please stand down." Laughter erupted on the pirate bridge. Vex fired a warning shot, a massive plasma bolt that should have terrified the humans into submission. Instead, the human ships scattered like startled birds, moving with impossible speed and precision. "What the?" Vex didn't finish his sentence. The human ships had reformed into an attack pattern he'd never seen before. They moved like they shared one mind, weaving between his ships with stunning agility. The pirates opened fire with their main batteries, but hitting the human vessels was like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. The small ships didn't just evade. They seemed to predict where shots would land before they were fired. "Sir," his weapons officer shouted, "they're shields. Our weapons aren't having any effect." The human ship's shields flickered with strange patterns, adapting to each weapon impact. Technologies that pirates had never seen before turned their massive energy weapons into light shows. Then the humans counterattacked. Their ships targeted specific points on the pirate vessels with surgical precision. Within minutes, the pirates' engines, weapons, and communications were disabled. The massive ships floated helplessly in space. On the bridge of her ship, Captain Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Red Claw vessels, your ships have been disabled. Galactic Council peacekeepers are on their way. I suggest you use this time to reconsider your career choices." News of the battle spread quickly through the galaxy. Security footage showed how the tiny human fleet had humiliated one of the most feared pirate gangs in the sector. In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives watched the recordings in stunned silence. Admiral Cathax, who had once mocked human ships for their size, felt his mandibles twitch nervously. Perhaps, he realized, They had all made a terrible mistake in underestimating humanity. The Galactic Council's emergency session was interrupted by urgent news. The Kraxan Empire had launched an unprovoked attack on 3 peaceful mining colonies. Display screens showed massive Kraxan warships, each 20 kilometers long, advancing through neutral space. "Earth offers assistance," announced Admiral Sarah Chen, now humanity's military representative. Many council members shifted uncomfortably, remembering how they'd once mocked human ships. After the pirate incident, no one was laughing anymore. "The Kraxan Empire fields the 3rd largest fleet in known space," warned Kithax. "Their smallest warship dwarfs your entire attack squadron." "Size isn't everything, Admiral," Chen replied, activating a holographic display. "Allow us to demonstrate our new military doctrine." The demonstration shocked the Council. Hundreds of human vessels moved as one organism, their movements synchronized by quantum-linked AIAs. Small squadrons split and reformed with perfect precision, each ship anticipating the other's actions microseconds in advance. "Impossible," whispered a Droxy representative. "The coordination level, the reaction speeds." The Council approved Earth's intervention. Within hours, the human fleet engaged the Kraxan forces. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. The Kraxan commanders laughed when they saw the human ships, until those ships executed their first attack run. Moving like a swarm of angry insects, the human vessels targeted engine arrays, weapon systems, and shield generators with devastating accuracy. Their smaller size made them nearly impossible to hit with the Kraxan's massive but slow-tracking weapons. "How are they penetrating our shields?" demanded the Kraxan fleet commander. His mighty dreadnought, once considered invincible, now struggled against opponents a fraction of its size. The answer came in the form of synchronized strikes. Human ships worked in perfect teams, their weapon frequencies complementing each other, creating gaps in the supposedly impenetrable Kraxan shields. Within 2 hours, the entire Kraxan invasion fleet was disabled. Not a single human ship was lost. In the council chambers, the footage of the battle left the representatives speechless. The species they had dismissed as primitive had just defeated one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. Admiral Kithax approached Chen after the session. "We were wrong about humanity," he admitted. "Your ships aren't tiny, they're precisely the size they need to be." Chen smiled. "Sometimes the best revolution isn't about building bigger weapons," she said. "It's about thinking differently about the ones you have." The Avalonian Empire made its move on a quiet Tuesday morning. Their planet-sized warship, World Breaker, emerged from hyperspace near the peaceful Nexus trading hub. The massive vessel cast a shadow across entire continents of the hub's main planet. "Surrender the Nexus," the Avalonian Emperor's hologram boomed across all frequencies. "Or watch us demonstrate why we named this ship World Breaker." The Galactic Council scrambled into emergency session. The Avalonians had crossed a line, but facing a ship the size of a small planet seemed impossible. Even the combined fleets of the Council would take heavy casualties. Then humanity's delegation stood up. "We'll handle this," said Admiral Chen. Some council members who hadn't heard about the Kraxan incident started to object, but Kithax silenced them with a wave of his mandibles. The human response fleet arrived within hours. 500 ships, none larger than a kilometer, arranged themselves in a complex 3-dimensional formation. The Avalonian Emperor laughed when he saw them. "These are our opponents. These specks of dust," he mocked. "World Breaker's point defense systems swat larger objects than these from our hull daily." The human ships said nothing. Instead, they began to move. The formation split into dozens of smaller groups, each moving in perfect synchronization. The Avalonian gunners couldn't track them. They were too small, too fast, too coordinated. "Impossible." The Emperor raged as the first human squadron breached their outer defenses. The tiny ships had found a weakness in their shield geometry that had never mattered before, gaps too small for any normal warship to exploit. What followed was a masterclass in tactical warfare. Human vessels slipped through shield gaps millimeters wide, their synchronized weapons striking critical systems with surgical precision. They moved like water-finding cracks in a dam, unstoppable in their precision. Within hours, the mighty world breaker hung powerless in space, its vital systems systematically disabled by ships it could barely see on its sensors. The Emperor's final transmission was cut short as his command center lost power. In the council chambers, the representatives watched in awe. The species they had once mocked for their tiny fleet had just defeated the largest warship ever built. Size, they realize, meant nothing without innovation and skill to back it up. Admiral Cathax turned to Chen. "I believe," he said quietly, "we owe humanity an apology." The defeat of the World Breaker marked a turning point in galactic military doctrine. In the massive shipyards of the Droxy Empire, construction on their newest super-dreadnought stopped mid-frame. Instead, engineers huddled over designs for smaller, more agile vessels. "Learn from the humans," the Droxy High Command had ordered. "Size is no longer our advantage." Throughout the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Species that had spent centuries building bigger ships now rushed to downsize their fleets. Human engineers found themselves in high demand as consultants. At the Galactic Council's military academy, Admiral Chen stood before a class of alien officers. The lecture hall was packed, with representatives from over 50 species eager to learn humanity's secrets. "The key isn't just making ships smaller," Chen explained, pointing to a holographic display of human fleet formations. "It's about thinking differently. Each ship must be part of a greater whole." In orbit above the academy, students watched in amazement as a demonstration fleet of human vessels performed intricate maneuvers. The ships moved like schools of fish, each vessel's actions perfectly complementing the others. Even the Avalonians, humbled by their defeat, sent their best engineers to study under human instructors. Their emperor, once proud of commanding the largest ship in history, now spoke of efficient design and tactical flexibility. The Kraxan Empire, following their earlier defeat, completely rebuilt their fleet based on human principles. Their new ships, while still larger than human vessels, were a fraction of their previous size. "We were all wrong," Cathax admitted during a council session. "We thought bigger meant better. Humanity showed us that true strength lies in innovation, coordination, and adaptability." The revolution spread beyond military applications. Trading ships shrank, becoming faster and more efficient. Space stations were redesigned to accommodate fleets of smaller vessels rather than a few massive ones. A new age of space travel had begun, and humanity, once mocked for their tiny fleet, led the way. 5 years after humanity's first appearance at the Galactic Council, the annual fleet review looked very different. Gone were the massive ships that once dominated space. Instead, hundreds of smaller vessels filled the sky above the council capital, their formations precise and beautiful. Admiral Sarah Chen, now Supreme Commander of the Combined Galactic Defense Force, stood at the podium where Cathax had once mocked human ships. Behind her, a holographic display showed the transformation of space warfare over the past 5 years. "Today marks the completion of our galactic fleet modernization," she announced. "Every member species has successfully adapted their forces to the new doctrine." The council chamber erupted in applause. Even the Avalonians, who had once built a ship the size of a planet, now proudly displayed their new fleet of agile cruisers. "Humanity didn't just change our ships," Cathax spoke next, his mandibles clicking softly. "They changed how we think about space itself. We learned that the greatest strength lies not in size, but in working together." In orbit, demonstration flights showed the results of this revolution. Ships from 20 different species moved in perfect harmony, their AIs coordinating movements with human precision. Trading vessels darted through asteroid fields that once required long detours. Defense fleets protected vast sectors with fewer resources than ever before. The Droxy representative, who had once laughed at human cargo capacity, now boasted about how their new ships could deliver goods 300% faster than their old megafreighters. The galaxy enters a new age, Chen concluded. An age where we judge strength not by the size of our ships, but by the innovation of our minds and the unity of our actions. As she finished speaking, a new ship class took its first flight. Designed jointly by humans and 5 other species, it represented everything they had learned. Small, agile, and incredibly advanced, it was built not to dominate through size, but to protect through intelligence and cooperation. The species that once mocked the tiny fleet had become its most dedicated students. And in the end, they had all learned that true greatness often comes in unexpected packages.